Greetings and welcome to Module 5 of ED 621B. You will have either attended the orientation overview or watched the screen or the recording of it before you start your work here on Module 5. And now we're going to expand our lessons into multidisciplinary integrated units. So our objectives for this module are that you expand stage 1 of your UbD lesson into a 2 to 3 week thematic UbD unit. You'll be selecting standards from multiple content areas, unpacking those into transfer goals, and expanding the essential questions, enduring understandings, and objectives to reflect the multidisciplinary content. You will, for the purpose of this unit, design the curriculum from a theme perspective rather than a content topic perspective. You will, however, be using your content to do that. Prepare to and embed culturally relevant teaching throughout your unit, and we'll tell you how to do that. So your tasks for Module 5 are to read, watch, and apply the resources provided for this module, to read Tomlinson and McTighe Differentiated Instruction, chapters 1 through 5, an easy read. It's a small book, and it's very, very instructive. Peruse Harvey's Strategies at Work, Part 3, for information and support in terms of resources for your writing. Watch What is Cultural Relevance? I think they now call it cultural pedagogy. PowerPoint presentation. There's also a screencast to watch and listen to. And write down notes and ideas in response to the questions in the culturally responsive instruction and in cultural capital sections of the note-taking graphic organizer, which you will be shown after the second screencast. I will be collecting the completed graphic organizer in Module 8, and I will go over that with you. Complete Module 5, checking for understanding. And then on the unit template, you're going to choose standards. You're going to unpack them into goals. You're going to expand the objectives to be aligned with the goals. And you're going to expand essential questions and enduring understandings based on the unit theme and big idea. And make sure they are all aligned. That is, they are cohesive and make sense together, that there's an internal consistency. So you're working on a 2 to 3 week unit now, instead of just a small lesson that might take a week, as some of you have brought to my attention. So let's take a look and see what's in Module 5. So you'll have the Module 5 overview and lesson, which is what I'm doing with you right now. You'll also, there'll be a PowerPoint slides will be put here that go with this screencast. There'll be another screencast, Culturally Responsive Pedagogy, which the slides are there for you now. And then you have the note-taking graphic organizer, which I'll talk to you about when we go over this screencast, this PowerPoint. The UbD template, you will see, is now quite expanded. This is no longer a small lesson. This is a big project. And this is where most of our work is going to come in. So you've learned the language, now you're going to put it all together and make this beautiful, lovely document. So again, some of the stuff is exactly the same as the other. Make sure all this information, except now you have theme of unit and the content area or areas. You'll always have the materials for the unit, but that will probably come toward the end when you know what exactly you're doing. You have your area for your content standards and subject area standards and the transfer goals for them. I just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you may have more than one, and you'll see in the example that, for example, for my health standard, I have 2 transfer goals. So you may have more than one transfer goal for a standard, and that's great. That's fantastic. That means you're thinking about what your students need to learn and what you're planning to do with your lesson. You're doing understandings and essential questions, your objectives. Your assessment's going to be more expansive, quite a bit more expanded. It's going to include all of these elements in it, including the performance assessment, which I want you to note is different than the culminating performance task. A performance assessment can be any small performance assessment. The culminating performance task pulls together the whole unit into, or at least a larger part of the unit. In the case of this, the example, my nutrition example, there will be 2 culminating performance tasks. So they pull in a large chunk of the learning and make it relevant, and it becomes a project. These things you'll be developing in the next course in C, so you do not need to worry about the culminating performance task, but you may have some small performance tasks in your lesson and your assessments. So where you're really going to see a difference is in the second stage 3 opportunities to learn. You'll have a column for standards addressed. you'll have a column for learning activities, and you'll have a column for learning and instructional strategies, and we'll be scaffolding that throughout these modules. You'll start with your hook, just as you did for your lesson, and you'll have your lesson 1 and your lesson 1 objectives, and then however, I just put 4, well, they're just numbered. You can have as many elements to your lesson as you need, but I want you to note that these objectives will be pulled down from your objectives here. Why are you doing that twice? Well, originally I was just going to have you identify where it went, but I thought the hardest thing for people to know is how their lesson elements connect with their objectives, and that was the hardest thing to be graded. And this is the best way I know for you to make sure that these elements are aligned with the objectives and that they're not doing something else. And so for every lesson, and you have to have objectives for every lesson anyway, but just pull them down from your objectives here. What you might find when you get to Module 7 and you're developing your lessons is that you may need to add objectives. That's fine. Just add the objectives. Highlight them in red and just say, I had to add these objectives because it made sense to your lesson. That's fine. And you can reuse objectives. They can fit for more than one lesson. So you'll have objectives for each lesson, and the lesson may have just one number or one element, or it may have 4 elements. It just depends on what that particular lesson looks like. And then as many lessons as you need. You'll have a conclusion, you'll have a closure. And then in Module 8, we're going to look at differentiation specifically. In Modules 5 and 6, you're going to look at culture and language connections. And that's what the graphic organizer is for, the note-taking graphic organizer, and for the differentiated instruction. It was hard to choose what to do first, the learning opportunities or the differentiation. So again, just like the objectives, you may end up going back to your lesson and adding things when you start looking at how you differentiated. Are you differentiating for the variability of your students? So with that, I'll go back to the content in the module. So that's the unit template. There's an article for you to read, Creating Culturally Responsive Classrooms. It's a nice article to read, and it's not very long. Articulating essential questions and enduring understanding with Common Core State Standards is a great resource. Just take a look at it. It's useful. Everything in here is set up for you. Examples of themes for social studies, ideas for integrating the arts. These are all for you to look at and get ideas from in terms of building and designing your lesson and what you want to put in your lesson. You'll remember Bloom's taxonomy for digital tasks. Remember that we're really working on getting that higher level thinking going. These are useful, but you don't want to spend time when you're writing your objectives and your transfer goals down here. You want the language from up here. Checking for understanding Module 5. Section due for Module 5, and then here's your multidisciplinary integrated stage drop box. I'll go over the UbD unit example quickly. You'll fill out the top. I already have this filled out. The whole thing is filled out. What you're submitting, like in A, is what is in red. You have your standards. You have your transfer goals. Notice I said it before, health has 2 transfer goals. Everything else has 1. I would like you all to have a reading and a writing standard. So of the 5 more that you choose, or of the 6 standards you have, 2 of them need to be reading and writing. I'll just make that a mandate, because you're going to end up having students explain and demonstrate and take in information that they need. And so you need to have some form of reading and writing standard and their transfer goals. Enduring understandings, essential questions relative to the theme of your unit. And you may have to add some things here. You'll have to add some things to the objectives. For example, I actually added these 2 down here to my objectives because of the reading and the writing and what they needed to do for the unit. And then that's it for this, what you're going to submit for this module. The rest of it, this is a complete unit. So everything that's in red is what you're submitting. Everything that's in black is to come or has been. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're talking about when we're talking about, not quite sure why that was there, creating a multidisciplinary integrated UbD curriculum unit. We're going to review a few things we've talked about already in 621A. We talked about the big idea, that it provides a conceptual unifying lens to the instruction. It's like the big umbrella for the whole thing. It is drawn from the standards. It has overarching relevance for people in their lives. I can't emphasize that enough. It is an important topic to other people, not just to you or the student, and can be examined through multiple academic disciplines. It is not about skills and techniques. You can talk about skills and techniques in your lesson and your learning opportunities, but it's not the whole big picture. So what is the big idea? Colonialism is not. It's a small thing that you can define. Self-governance is. Self-governance looks different in many different cultures in many different places. The slave trade is not a big idea, but balance and imbalanced power relations is a big idea. The rock cycle is not a big idea. You can draw the rock cycle. The effects of geologic forces is a big idea. And then you narrow it down. So the big idea is the great big, and then you're pulling it down to meaningful units of instruction. Magnets are not a big idea. Magnetism is a big idea. Impressionism is not a big idea. I love Impressionism. But the evolution of classical painting is a big idea. How did we get to Impressionism? How did that happen? Who were the leaders in it? And those are the essential questions, right? Writing an essay is not a big idea. Writing to communicate is a big idea. What are you communicating? How you're communicating? So the left are topics. These should be used to support learning about big ideas. We're going to review creating transfer goals. When we unpack a standard, the thinking and doing verbs are embedded, and remember they're higher order thinking verbs. It is from these verbs that the objectives are created. The established standard and the transfer goals, all the verbs are defined and can be measured, easily understood by students and families. So if you're using college level language for that, rethink it. Think about how you are using your language to convey this information. You are communicating. The learning is relevant, it's meaningful to the students. The learning is something the child should be able to know and do and is important beyond the student's immediate interests or culture. So it's bigger than your house in Anchorage. It's bigger than your house in Juneau. It's bigger than Matanuska Glacier or Mendenhall Glacier. It's bigger than that. It carries more weight. What is worth teaching and assessing? And that's what the standards are all about, right? Now, essential questions are designed around the big idea. What we just gave you a couple of quick examples. They're open-ended questions that are thought-provoking and interpretive at the heart of a subject or curriculum. They are at the core of your content and often lead to or require further investigations. And you can certainly go on, what do you call it when you go on little squirrel jaunts? You go off on a tangent to talk about things that the essential questions will actually generate. And so you have to like put a paper on the wall and say, okay, questions we'll talk about later, because you have to kind of stay focused, because they will really draw you off into other conversations. They have no obvious right answer. They raise more questions, and they address concepts that are key to the discipline. Those foundational pieces that a person must know in order to really have a comprehension or understanding of it. And their enduring understandings anchor the lesson unit. Why is this topic worth studying? So it's a little bit bigger, right? They're the big ideas that are transferred and made into statements. The students will understand that the painting evolved over the course of 2 generations of painters. Impressionism evolved over the course of 2 generations of painters, and so changed the course of, or whatever. That actually was a little too specific. Require uncoverage of abstract or misunderstood ideas. So if it's very abstract or they don't understand it, that's what the enduring understandings will help uncover. They reveal the big ideas. They answer the question, what do we want students to understand and be able to use several years from now after they have forgotten the details? So they go to the museum, they see an impression, they say, oh, right, I remember talking about Monet and how he used to paint this way and now he paints this way. Or okay, and now 2 SMART objectives. We worked over these extensively, and you did a great job in A. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. They are directly related to the unit goals and relative to the grade level you're working in. And so again, you're probably going to have to add some more objectives because you're expanding the context of your lesson to become a unit that is working through multiple disciplines. So what fields of knowledge are involved in the investigation of your unit? Art, science, math, social studies. How are they involved with each other? What artists, authors, scholars, etc. best exemplifies your big idea? You can think about that like Monet for me exemplifies my big idea of Impressionism. Who cares about this idea? Artists. Some people don't. Not everybody has to, but they're big, but it's bigger. It's bigger. You just have to think big. If it's in a museum, it was a big idea. For whom are there ramifications? Who does it affect? Right? How does it affect people? Who does it affect? So how essential questions can be interdisciplinary or integrated. Essential questions set the stage for students to have multiple opportunities using multiple means to investigate and demonstrate their thinking, knowledge, and understanding through various content area paths. That is to say, this is an example. How do natural resources affect nations and potential conflict among them? That is a great essential question. And if you see in the purple below, it covers social studies, geography, economics, biology, math, political science, language arts, and you could probably name some more. You're not going to, and you're going to have to really focus this. Where are you going to go with this essential question? And that's how you're going to draw down your learning opportunities in your lesson. So the essential questions are like the big thoughts that lead to investigations at smaller units. So now we're looking at what multidisciplinary is. You probably got a pretty good idea by now. It centers around a concept, issue, problem, topic, or experience in a career-themed, well, it doesn't have to be career. This is from a career ed top context. But in a way, it is career-themed because you want your students to think about what they're going to be doing when they get out of school. I don't care if they're third graders. You want them to think about beyond. They're in school. You want to think about, and third graders may be thinking about their home and their friends, but that's outside of school. Students explore a set of topics in several standards-based academic disciplines. The concept that is being explored brings together various aspects of the curriculum in a meaningful way, just like the question we saw. So you have the real-world issue, which is why it's dark. This is really what you want to be thinking about when you're doing your everything you do. Everything you do needs to kind of stem from that real-world issue. These are means, and I'm not going to read through these to you so much as just point them out to you. Fusion. You'll see a lot of curriculum content, of commercial content that will do a lot of fusion. So you're teaching language arts using social studies and or science and or math as the content vehicle. For example, National Geographic Sungauge. Learning centers are parallel disciplines. So you can have a math learning center, a reading learning center, a writing learning center, a science learning center, a social studies learning center. So there's the parallel disciplines. Theme-based units, which is what you're doing, is you're going to collaborate either in your own classroom or with other professionals for a multidisciplinary unit that covers the same theme. So it usually ends with a culminating activity. And I did, where's my little cursor here? Unit ends with an integrated culminating activity. I will reinforce this often because this is what draws it all together. That is the culminating performance task. And again, that's not what we're really going to be working on this course, but you will be working on it next course. Usually several weeks duration for the unit. For example, holidays, rivers in Alaska, measuring dry weight, spiders, oil exploration, and so on. So you have your theme, you have your content areas, project-based learning. Some of you may be familiar with this, problem-based learning, place-based learning. You select a topic of study, generate questions to explore, which would stem from your essential questions and enduring understandings, and then you have your culminating activity again. Again, if you think of that little graphic we had before, it is authentic. That means it is relevant to real world or student-centered content. Culturally relevant, flexible for learning styles. This is the differentiated piece. Integrated, it flows together, but it covers a variety of content areas. And you're using your higher order thinking processes to work through this material and learn it, you as in your students. Integrated, multidisciplinary and integrated are not synonymous, but they do go together. Integrated has to do with the fact that you take all these content areas and what are their commonalities? How can you integrate them? What's important about each one of them that each one of them needs to do? So constructing viable arguments, valuing evidence, engaging in argument from evidence is true for all three of the particular content areas you see here. That is integrated. That means that these things are important no matter what the content area is. And the content areas together can be applied to the questions that you have in terms of the different content areas and the theme you're covering. So the next steps are expanding your lesson to a themed unit. I set you standards for 4 to 6. make it 5 different content areas that can apply, well, 6 including the one you've already got. Apply to the theme of your unit, unpack, transform the standards, transfer goals, expand essential questions and doing understandings, expand your objectives and key knowledge. The collection of objectives should indicate an obvious big idea that is the overarching glue for the entire unit. So all of these things, no, no, all of these things, I just finished it. All of these things here should actually be connected with each other. There should be a very clear relationship with every single thing. Specificity. And so that's what they're related, cohesive, and make sense together, that there's a flow. There's a flow, that it makes a natural, scaffolded educational sense. Next, after you do that, you can do it before, or you can do this next step before you do your actual assignment, is to watch the PowerPoint screencast on culturally relevant pedagogy and add your notes to the note-taking graphic organizer. And I'm going to now show you that graphic organizer. I wanted to wait. No, I'm not going to show you. I'm going to actually stop here, and you can watch the culturally relevant pedagogy, and I will show you the graphic organizer at that time. So let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to your work. Have fun expanding your lesson.